like literally last week, and so I decided that I would come to this meeting and see what you all had to say.
Awesome. Well, nice to meet you, Michael. We'll be talking mostly about circular economy on this one. It's a 101 workshop, but we have a lot to talk about on a number of fronts. How about Amanda?
Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda McGee. I'm in this group as a voluntary service to some folks that are around the Blue River, and I have a lot of long-term experience with a variety of topics that surround urban planning and environmental in Kansas City. And I'm just really looking forward to hearing us discuss this topic today.
Awesome. I really appreciate you showing up to all the meetings, and you have a lot to add, and it's great. How about you, Nadja?
Sure. My name's Nadja Carpolo. I'm with the Mark Solid Waste Management District. In my role there, I am a grant administrator, and we have funded many projects, including Ripple Glass and Missouri Organic and Avenue of Life for mattress recycling. And currently I am working on an illegal dumping initiative. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, we should put you on the panel. It's really going to be a brain trust, so we will we'll all learn it from each other. How about you, Gail? What brings you to the conversation?
Hi, my name is Gail Burris. I'm from Eastwood Hills Community Association. I have a longstanding interest in the environment and also in my community. And I wanted to learn what the term circular economy means. I'm familiar with life cycle economies. So I was wondering what this is in terms of updating probably that idea.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
How about Logan and then Sarah?
Hey everybody, I'm Logan. I am the new executive director of Heartland Conservation Alliance. I'm finishing up my third week, and HCA does a lot of work in the Blue River corridor, and it's a major focus of ours. So attending to learn more about other efforts going on.
Fantastic. Glad to see you again, Logan. And how about Sarah and then Kathy?
Hi everybody. I'm Sarah Bennell. I'm the outreach coordinator at Heartland Conservation Alliance, and I would just second Logan's statement about what brings us around. We've also worked closely with Christina for a long time. She's a valuable and lovely member of our work groups and steering council. So good to see you, Christina.
Right.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
How about Kathy and then the 713 number?
Good morning, everyone. This is Kathy Parsley from the Dunbar neighborhood, president of Heart of the City Neighborhood Association. I'm here, just lots of stuff going on, and I just want to make sure that we are maximizing our opportunities and finding out what's going on in the world around us so that we can be an integral part of it. And I'm looking forward to working with Brian and Christine. I've heard such great things, and I just know that we are on the right track to do some things that'll be great for the city.
I believe it. Thanks for showing up. 713.
Can you guys hear me, Brian?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, this is Chris Broughton. So had a little last minute change in plan, so I'm on the road rather than on my computer. But yeah, so Brian and I have kind of worked together with Roger Savory and the Savory Holistics kind of company for an XPRIZE project. But outside of that, I own a little soil biology lab and do a bunch of regenerative ag for clients, whether that be large cattle clients or, backyard gardener kind of people. And then I have a corporate gig where I have pretty extensive background and role in a industrial equipment company, let's say. So I'm here listening, putting input where I can, and hopefully the background noise isn't too bad.
I don't hear any right now. Thanks, Chris, for showing up.
Perfect.
How about Cynthia?
How is that? Hi, everyone.
Hey.
My name is Cynthia Issa. I'm a water quality planner with the Mid-America Regional Council. Was there anything else for the introduction?
Just what brings you here? What interests you?
Yes, very strong passion and interest in climate change and kind of what sustainable living looks like going forward. Really interested to learn a little bit more about the circular economy and the possibilities here in the region. And I'll leave it at that for now. Thanks, everyone.
All right. I see Jason and Taylor are here. The man that needs no introduction.
Please, far too kind. Jason Parson, been very fortunate to work with a number of members on this call for many years, and Brian and Bob and Christina worked with you here lately. So just trying to continue to be supportive, and any chance we get to engage community, that's always important for me, but just fortunate and glad to be on this wonderful and awesome team. Taylor.
Hi, I'm Taylor Rippey with Parson Associates as well. Happy to be here. I'm sorry, what am I supposed to be?
Well, what brings you here? But you're part of the organizing team.
Part of the team. Happy to be here, and I'm excited to learn more about this too.
Okay, so I'm going to reserve, just wait a second for Guillermo, Stan, and Bob, our expert panel discussion, and have them introduce themselves a little bit deeper. I'm just going to give a quick overview of the agenda, and then we'll go into each one of them just to tell you a little bit about who they are and the perspective that they're bringing. So let's, and just to say that this is a 101. I hear like the folks on this call are probably, a lot of them are at 301 or 401. And we were really reacting to a community session that we held with neighborhood leaders that said, what is circular economy and how could they potentially provide meaningful jobs to replace a lot of the industrial jobs that are no longer in this footprint of the Blue River Valley. So we're kind of responding to that question. And when we said, hey, we'd like to add value and just share some knowledge and talk about the future, this was one of the topics that a lot of people gravitated to towards the end of that call. And there's a lot of other topics that we could also present on. But so, very, I'd say, basic 101 of what is a circular economy. We want to talk about and kind of go deeper and expand on that from the expert industry players that we brought, and they'll introduce themselves in just a second. What is the current size and the potential size of this industry in the Blue River Valley in Kansas City? And what are the types of jobs that may be available in the future? That's the high level, and we're already 10 minutes in, so I think we'll have a healthy discussion. If you have questions, don't feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand, and we will get to it. So can you see my screen?
No, we were seeing it previously, but we're not seeing it now.
Okay, let me, okay, so I think this is a good time for Guillermo, Stan, and Bob just to introduce themselves and tell you a little about the perspective that they're coming from. So Guillermo, why don't you start?
Well, thank you, Brian. I'm Guillermo Dekker. I'm right now in the Netherlands. I work for Metabolic, which is a system of companies that is focused on transitioning the economy to a sustainable state. We work with many different fields. We are approaching the sustainability in the circular economy from consultancy. We also have an institute where we do more research related work. We also have a software department where we do all these modeling of the systems like cities. And we also have a foundation and a venture department where we create different spin-offs that are focused on sustainability. We basically are working with Brian and trying to create a big understanding or a better understanding of what's happening in the Blue River Valley in terms of material flows. So that's our first goal to reach, and the part where we can help. Me personally, I am the city sustainability manager for Metabolic Consultancy. I have more than 10 years experience in many different places in urban planning, always focused on sustainability, and always focused on trying to make spaces into a better place for people to live and to thrive. I think that's very enough for a very quick introduction.
Beautiful. And so with Guillermo, we had this holistic, high-level perspective around, how does a city tackle this type of thing? And they're working with Chicago and Charlotte and many cities in Europe. Now I'll move on to Mr. Stan Slaughter, who is a Blue River Valley business leader, or working with a leader business, Missouri Organic, in the Blue River Valley, doing every day circular economy business. And so, Stan?
Yes, I'll try and bring it down to earth for you, Brian. I'm the outreach and education director of Missouri Organic Recycling. We're a 27-year-old company on the edge of the Blue River. We have 106 employees and 6 locations in the metro. Very large mulch company. We handle the woody waste. I call us the organic utility of Kansas City, because it's a tree city and we have enormous amounts of woody waste that would be wasted if we weren't making something good out of it. And we're now collecting approximately 20 tons of food waste a day from over 300 sources in the region, from Lawrence to Warrensburg to St. Joseph. And with that, we depackage it, remove the cardboard and plastic, and make it into the nitrogen source to make some really good compost. Approximately 75,000 cubic yards of compost a year, and approximately 270 cubic yards of mulch a year. That makes us a $12 million company, and we're interested in being in the circular economy, and we are in the circular economy, but being advocates of that for our regional area. I might add that I actually had 3 summers of work in the Blue River Valley as a laborer loading freight train cars with feed in the late 60s. So I've had some, got some sweat in the game, so to speak, with the Blue River. Also, I was instrumental in starting one of the first water quality monitoring groups. We held a meeting in 1993 for EPA and high schools and others as we started macroinvertebrate water sampling and water quality work in Kansas City. So some history and some current work. We're doing we have a very innovative education program right now. We're in our 2nd year of grants from the state of Kansas. We'll be finishing 100 schools. We basically, my partner and I took the state science standards and wrote them into compost lessons, produced videos on YouTube, and provided programs to these 100 schools, and it's expanding in the metro, not on the Kansas side, as several high schools have picked up on that. So we have a very innovative compost education system. Last thing, I was the state compost and recycling educator for Kansas for 17 years. So I've traveled the country singing and teaching about compost, which is my passion. I have an album called Rot and Roll. What can I say? So that's a little bit more about who I am.
Well, we'll have to have a performance next time.
Well, the guitar's right there.
All right, we'll see if we can get that in. So with Stan, we've got feed in the grass and the dirt and the compost, making compost using, after a storm in Kansas City, what happens with those trees? They use this organic utility to take those trees to Missouri Organic, either for compost or for Urban Lumber Company, which is adjacent, for a sawmill. And that's an interesting concept around byproduct synergies, where a waste like, you know, a tree trunk that you can't use for a compost, or let's say a element of heat off of an industrial process is being used, not just putting into the air the extra gases or heat or tree trunk, just leaving it there, but using it for another adjacent process to turn waste into value. And that's sort of the one-liner of circular economy. And I want to let and introduce Bob Berkebile, who is the environmental godfather of Kansas City, and to share his perspective around circular economy and just a little bit about himself.
Hi, Brian, and everyone. I, as most of you know, am a retired architect who got interested in the larger natural systems that architecture was interacting with. And looking in an area like the Blue River Valley, what kind of my first level analysis is, how does this operate relative to nature? Nature is really effective because of its, first of all, efficiency and the fact that everyone's waste is someone else's diet. And in the Blue River Valley, it's obvious that hasn't happened for a very long time, with two exceptions. One is Stan and Missouri Organics, and the other is Ripple Glass. But everyone else is producing waste that no one is interested in using, either because they don't know about it or it's so toxic they're frightened of it. And so the degree to which we can close those loops and not have inputs that become waste on the other side, but turn it all back into more powerful, more healthy, more effective, more economically powerful systems, that's the way I think of circular economy. And I think I applaud what Stan and Missouri Organics have done. He's a pioneer. I think his guitar and his voice and creativity were a big part of that, but we have all benefited from it. And we would hope to use him as an example of how this can be really powerful if we apply the same concept throughout this valley and ultimately through the region.
Beautiful. So I'm going to show a couple images, and I would love for popcorn style for the panelists, now that they've introduced themselves, to react to them and to go a layer deeper. The first image is this one. So for me, when I see this image, I think about that there's biological materials in circular economy. Guillermo talked about the flows. Everything is about the flow of materials. What we have to think about is that some things are nature themselves, they're biological, they're alive, and there's a whole process around that. And some of them are technical. You know, this is like a steel or an industrial process. And, you know, there's certain things that we can do with each of them to minimize leakage, to minimize waste, and to recover value as part of the process. And so I'm curious if this image draws anything out for you, Guillermo, in helping us with a 101 understanding of circular economy.
Yeah, thank you. Well, this image, if I'm not mistaken, I call it always the butterfly diagram because it looked like a butterfly. But I think that what this image is trying to show is that if we want to create like a sustainable system, we need to go or run away a bit from what we are used to, which is a linear economy or a linear system where we collect things to produce, and then we just use them and we just throw them away as waste. That's what all economic system is based on. And what this diagram is trying to show is that if we want to be sustainable and actually live alongside nature, as Mr. Berkebile was saying, we need to create a circular system. And how do we do that? We need to try to reuse our own waste and find out, first of all, what we produce, because that's the only way we can start to close our loops. That if we want to close our loops, we need to know what are these loops consisting on. So first of all, we need to understand what are our outputs. We need to understand what our waste production is. As after that, we can try to connect that waste to our process where we can reduce that waste. So we keep and retain value. So what usually happens is that we create a product and we add value. So the industrial process that that product requires creates a value. We use it and then we throw it away. So we destroy the value. So what the circular economy aims to do is create the value. So extract a material, manufacture it, assemble it, and then retail it and use it. And then instead of throwing it away and destroy the value that we have created ourselves, is that we can reuse it and redistribute it. We can refurbish it. We can remanufacture it. We can recycle it. And therefore we introduce the product or what prior was waste again into the market. And we start creating these closed loops from where we can all benefit, because we don't need to keep extracting things from nature and keep asking so much to our environment. That's a bit of my first comment to this butterfly diagram.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And, you know, to break it down into real terms, you know, because it gets really fancy talk really easily. And it really what we're talking is about textiles, plastics, aluminum, yard waste, that, you know, tires, every single end product has a process and has an approach to turning it, instead of a cradle to grave, meaning we just make it and it ends up in a landfill. We turn it to cradle, where we have a little bit more circular design process, a little bit more circular industrial process, such that we actually eliminate the concept or need for waste in the first place. So that, you know, that's some additional stuff. And I'm wondering if Stan has something that, you know, from his perspective on the ground of when you look at that diagram, Stan, or anything that you want to really add at this moment.
Well, I've been looking at 3D printed houses, and they're very, very cool. And I'm told that the wire, the thread of plastic that's melted into the places to make the houses, can be made from recycled plastic. And I'm just fascinated with that idea. If we could, you know, if we're removing plastic from the food waste stream, and if we could actually have cleaner, better plastic from the recycling stream and prepare that stuff, because we certainly need houses. And some of the ones I've seen are just mind-bogglingly beautiful as well as powerful. The other thing that's, if you could go back to the butterfly, Guillermo.
Yep. I'll share my screen again.
Yes, please. I'm going to stay with the what would be the left side wing if we look at it on my side. So the chemical extraction of biochemical feedstock, one of the recyclable liquid containers is made out of PLA, which is a polylactic acid material. And it's an easily digested, created from food waste. So you can actually create the feedstock for recyclable containers out of the food waste that we're separating now. I like that idea. We certainly have the project. I'm sliding up the scale from the center to the left. The anaerobic digestion is a big thing. Having the anaerobic digester in the first, along with the food waste processing and composting, is great, because the digestate that comes out of the anaerobic digester after we've collected the gas is still a nitrogen-rich liquid, which can go right back into the compost, as well as, you know, the bankable. The thing about, I heard about the Blue River was that, you know, these outflows are are monetizable. They're bankable. They're 24/7, 365. If you can find a good way to make something out of sewage, out of human waste, biosolids, that's great. But there's also that flow of food waste that we can monetize and work with that. And particularly in the form of biogas, you create that in the valley, you'd have a district heating source that would work really well. The other one I like to talk about is up by the farming and collection at the top. Creating more compost and more organic products in the valley doesn't have to go to the farm. We are piloting something this year. It's called the Climate Friendly Yard Makeover. And we're literally going to get some volunteers to let us have their yard. And Missouri Organic is going to provide the mulch and the compost. We're going to have volunteers do the installation. The homeowner's going to buy the plants, and designers are going to volunteer their services. So we'll create an individual plan with perhaps a prairie patch, perhaps a raised bed garden in the front yard, perhaps a food forest, native plants, pollinators, everything we can do to increase the water absorption, the carbon sequestration, and improvement of the soil. We're going to demonstrate multiple concepts of that because we don't have to haul it to the farm. Farmers they're stuck on big time fertilizer, and that's a also it's heavy. we could haul it up out of the valley to the yards of the city a lot easier than we could haul it a long ways to agricultural hubs. Finally, I want to say something about a new Australian-based process, which is, you might call it cold fungal composting. And the idea is that you simply take biomass of many kinds and not necessarily any particular formula of them, and you pile these things up, inoculate it with a fungal inoculant. You leave it for 6 months, and at the end you have a extremely rich fungal dominant. And if you know anything about our soils, we till, we fertilize, we herbicide, and we ruin fungi. Fungi are the networkers that are bringing the food, the minerals back and forth and doing all those things. Well, this is a fungal rich inoculant. It's a process that Missouri Organic is about to license very soon. We'll be building some static piles there for 6 months and demonstrating that coming out of it. Thing about this is composting loses 2/3 of its matter into the air as carbon dioxide. This material retains all of that. So we end up with 100% of our feedstock when we're done instead of 35%. And so it's also much lower inputs as far as energy to produce. So we have another technology that we could literally park these on brownfields, use human biosolids, completely sterilize it, and transform a toxic site underneath it at the same time. Like the cascading win-win-win scenarios in this one make me dizzy. But we have a lot of opportunities on this organic wing that we are not quite all using yet.
Beautiful. I'm going to show another graph. This is just, there's many ways into the same conversation, as you know. And so I showed the butterfly graph. That's one. You know, if it's a lot of information, I always ground myself in, okay, there's a biological material process, and then there's a technical material process. And this other graph is what we call a Sankey diagram. Oops. And as you can see here on the left, you have households, commercial, construction sectors, public, and out of all the things, we have waste in the sense of plastics, textiles, metals, glass, construction and demolition waste, energy, electronics, paper, hazardous waste, organic waste. And essentially what this map is we're trying to figure out where all the materials coming from in terms of waste, and where are they all going in terms of waste, and how open or closed are those loops? What's ultimately happening with the tonnage of materials? Are they being recycled? Are they being composted? Or are there landfills? And if you think about it from a circular economy perspective, if it's going to landfill, there's a value loss. So all the things that you could be using, like, Stan is talking about the most innovative, biological process that may be out there in terms of composting. If we want to do that, well, if we have here this organic waste, where most of it's just going right into landfill, we're losing value, we're losing economic potential, we're losing job potential. And so right now we're actually going through a process with Guillermo to try and study this for the Blue River Valley. So we know what's our action plan, what's our battle plan of interventions in order to close those loops and make more use out of the different materials that we're using. And so I would love for Bob or Guillermo to just share some of their thoughts on this with respect to what do you do with some of these materials? What are people making out of them? How do they actually turn, these waste products that we don't really think much about into something of value?
Please, Bob, floor is yours.
I was going to say just the opposite, but you got to your mic before I did. I will say that what I'm seeing as an architect and planner and developer is what Stan was describing earlier on steroids. And the part he mentioned was using waste plastic as the feedstock for building new, beautiful housing. And I think technology has allowed us to do a better job of taking a deep dive at all these construction processes and decisions we make. And first of all, redesigning them so there isn't so much waste coming out of each of these individual processes. So that would change this diagram enormously at the first phase. But then for what does ultimately end up as waste from the collective folks in the valley, if we can find, as Ripple Glass has done, a way to take, for example, all those plastics or all those tires and introduce a new process that returns them to useful products and extends their life without creating more waste or releasing more carbon, that's a home run. And as we have all looked up and down the Blue River Valley Industrial Corridor, and as it relates to the rest of the planet, it looks like the opportunities are rich for us to once again make this a center for innovation, as it was when Ford built the first plant outside of Detroit, and as Armco Steel came in, and on and on. And so I think the opportunities are enormous, and with the knowledge of Guillermo and Stan and others, I think we can introduce a lot of new opportunities behind which there's enormous opportunity for redevelopment and reinvention and revitalization of the communities that surround it.
And just to provide a extremely tangible example, Ripple Glass is taking that glass and turning into countertops for folks' kitchens. So it's a real product that people are buying to that end. You might have an advanced pyrolysis system that is taking the tires and turning them into breaking them down into their raw materials, and then selling the raw materials that go into other processes. Or you might find, it might actually not be, sort of a physical thing, but it could be a gas or heat. All those are waste in the circular economy world that could be turned back into another process. Just to kind of ground it with like, okay, here's are some specific things that have happened. And Guillermo, I don't know if you have anything to add on that diagram or anything you want to chime in with.
Well, before he does, Brian, I would mention this, stay with Ripple for a moment. Their largest consumption of their product is to make insulation. And there are more demands. They have more market than they have raw glass. And so again, there at this point, if we can improve the access regionally to them for all this waste glass, they already have the customers. The orders are in place. They just don't have enough product. And I think we'll find the same reality with some other flows once we really understand the flows and the potential. And I think Guillermo might help us define that potential.
Exactly. And just to let the cat out of the bag, like the big aha moment is that the circular economy in the Blue River Valley is not a startup. You know, there will be startups that take on these new innovations, but there are some really serious large companies like Missouri Organic, like Ripple Glass, like some of the plastics and cardboard recyclers out there that add up to around $30 to $50 million in revenue every year. And their penetration rate in terms of the amount of feedstock that they could get, but they actually get, is very low, meaning there's a lot more waste out there that isn't being turned into value yet. So when I ask, and that's no more than 20% of the waste is being used in these processes. And actually it's as low as 3 to 10. I'm just being really, really conservative. So I can say a round number that catches all the different practices simultaneously. So when we talk about the potential for the future, we're talking about a serious list of companies that are employing already many people, but with a lot of opportunity to expand those operations to go further and faster together. So Guillermo, I interrupted your opportunity to respond.
No, I will just try to complement and try to explain a bit what we're trying to do together with you and the team. Like our Blue River Valley is a existing living metabolism. So there are a lot of things happening already, and there's a lot of waste being produced there. So our first goal, as if we want to have a systemic approach, and that's what we are specialized in, finding leverage points so that they can turn the system around and create a better system closer to circular economies. Try to understand what is the waste that is being produced in the Blue River Valley, so that we can actually try to find synergies. And that you guys were talking about these kind of synergies. So if we, as a company that is producing rubber, we need to find a way to use that rubber in order to create this kind of closed loops. So that's the first step. Try to understand how the system works, to try to start creating these synergies. And as this is not a project from scratch, this is a already consolidated area that is being a bit misused for some years. We need to start finding these kind of synergies to kind of pump it up and try to improve the area and increase the livability, increase the quality of our waste treatment system, and start creating a circular economy. So that's the key. Try to find the leverage points from which we can benefit the system as a whole. That's a bit the key. Find synergies.
Thank you. And I see that we have a couple questions. So, and I kind of relate to composting. So I was thinking maybe Stan, if you want to react to any of the questions around landfills or industrial composting.
Nadia's completely right. She knows exactly what she's talking about. Landfills are cheap here. You know, we're in the Midwest, the space between the people. And East or West coasts, those situations are different. You know, at $30 or $40 a ton, it's cheap to throw things away, but at 140, it starts to make a lot of difference. And we're blessed and cursed with with the space we have here. Well, the second question is industrial composting less expensive than landfilling? It's not the one way. It's going back out, going back into the cycle. And so we sell a lot of our compost for $40 a cubic yard. That's $100 a ton. And if it's $30 to throw it away and we can make $100 worth of products out of a ton of it, and put 100 people to work. So it's a different calculation.
I guess he's asking, it sounds like Logan's asking about the tipping fees. Like when you go to a landfill, don't you have to give a tipping fee? When you go to the compost, how does that work?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Sorry.
You know, if somebody, like I used to work at Harvesters and I know that they had a partnership with Missouri Organics, or even I have, you know, Food Cycle KC picking up from my doorstep. And I guess I'm just trying to get an understanding of, and maybe we don't have the scale yet to really have a good comparison, but just trying to get a sense whether you're an industrial customer or a residential customer or a commercial customer. You know, is it cheaper for you to throw something in your trash can or in your compost bin?
I'm going to quote my boss who says, I'm always a little cheaper than the landfill. He wants to price himself so that the incentive is to bring him the material instead of landfill it. And in some of the cases, in the case of liquid waste, you can't landfill them. And so we've had, you know, some problem materials that we actually can charge a pretty good amount for because there's no competition. It has to come here basically, or go to a hazardous waste landfill, which is even worse. So
I think that's touches a very key point in why circular economy is not being developed in an easier way, is that because people still think that it's cheaper to throw things away. And one of the goals of the work we are doing right now is that after we understand how the system works and what kind of waste is being created in the Blue River Valley, we develop this kind of implementation strategies and business cases to show people that actually there are a lot of things that we could do with the waste. And maybe at the beginning of the process, it looked a bit more expensive, but actually if you implement that, created a new value chain, you can actually have a lot of economic benefits from it. And that's something that is not seen by most of the population because it's not immediate. But if you develop a business case for them and you show them how they could develop strategies to actually make money from not landfilling, it helps a lot to people to change the mindset, because that's also one of the biggest problems to achieve circular economy, is that we are built in a certain mindset where we are so used to buy things and throw them away that we think that there is nothing else we can do with those materials or those waste flows. And that's also a key point of the changing of attitude of people, is show them that actually there are a lot of things that you can be doing with that, and actually they can also be beneficial in an economic way, not only in an environmental or social way. So that's a very it's one of the bottlenecks of having a successful circular economy strategy for area development such as the Blue Valley River.
So I really love the discussion, and just want to recap. So far, we've talked about the 101 overview. We've kind of gone into different diagrams that help us understand. We've talked about the current and potential size of the industry here in the Blue River Valley. We said that it's about $30 to $50 million already, with no more than 20% penetration rate. And we have estimates saying that this is the next $1 trillion economy. We've gone a little bit into some of the example waste products or things that might happen. And I just want us to kind of finish this conversation, leave a little bit more room for Q&A, but talk about, okay, what does this mean for people in the neighborhoods? What does this mean for potential jobs, green jobs, more meaningful jobs? Missouri Organic, there's plenty of staff that you can speak to, Stan, of, what are people actually doing? And maybe from Guillermo's perspective, what he's seen in other cities of how this has, what type of jobs has this created, or what we can learn from other cities related to, meaningful jobs or green jobs. What type, if I'm on the call and I'm thinking, hey, my son or my neighbor, might be interested in circular economy, this is kind of interesting, what kind of jobs would they ultimately be doing?
I can speak to the quality of our jobs, which is actually kind of interesting because, I'm doing the education, the outreach, and the public relations, but I'm, the odd duck at Missouri Organic. It's well-paid truck drivers and equipment operators with health benefits, and not a union job at this point, but it might as well be. It's a family business, and we take really good care of our employees, and people have left and come running back. So I made a mistake. That's one of the things that I see, is that these are definitely blue collar jobs, but they're good jobs and well paid. With the company that does all its own maintenance, for example, we could be leasing this stuff, but we literally buy this equipment to, keep our own 4 more mechanics on jobs, maintaining and keeping it all in place. So I really not prejudiced at all, but really appreciate our approach to that and the way we handle the, if you will, the blue collar side of it.
And Stan, I think it would be helpful if you included the folks in urban lumber in that conversation, the kind of craftsmen, artisans. So say a little bit about them and what they do with the stuff that you give to them instead of composting.
Absolutely. Well, a portion of their feedstock for urban lumber comes from Missouri Organic directly, logs that come to us that are ready to be cut, but cut up, suitable for good furniture wood. But a lot of it comes in directly. They don't actually pay for logs. They get them for a very no price, typically, maybe the hauling. But first, we dry the boards. If we cut them into nice, thick feedstock, full 1-inch boards, and let them set for 2 years. So when we put them on our showroom, we've already dried them well, so they're ready to go to work. And we have a lot of craftsmen, hobbyists come in and buy particular boards and make a coffee table out of it or whatever. But then we're capable and have the men on staff to build very fine projects. I have like a 40-inch by 28-inch, 3-inch thick island top made out of 7 different kinds of wood. It looks like a checkerboard. Very beautiful. It's walnut and spalted hackberry glued together. It's an amazing piece, and they do corporate meeting tables. One piece that I saw was absolutely amazing. A single pedestal for a statue for the Nelson. And it's like 3 feet wide and 3 feet deep and 3 feet high, dried over 2 or 3 years to not crack, finished immaculately. Where can you go get a chunk of this one piece of wood that big to do that job? So, the art possibilities are amazing, and that's not our biggest part of it. We would actually need to expand to do a more of a fine arts and finished cabinetry and art pieces, but the demand is there. People are bringing us projects faster than we can build them.
Stan, will you just add another and say something about where we are in terms of the realized potential of your own business and all these different innovative businesses that you see, if we were really to take on the circular economy and build it out?
Well, it's huge. if you think about food waste, it's a 2 million person metro. Every person makes a half a pound of food a day. So that's 1 million pounds of food waste a day. We're collecting 40,000. So that's 4%. You know, how big could this be? How much natural gas could we offset? How much compressed natural gas? How many fleet trucks could be fired with natural gas? How much process energy could we do with natural gas here without fossil implications? And simply just recovering that. And once again, the digestate that comes out after the gas is produced is perfect for land application, or it's already been sterilized. It's ready for food waste composting. So, you know, the feedstock, the petro energy, if you could take the food waste and ferment it into polylactic acid and make recycled plastic cups that were actually compostable as well as do that job. That's just, let me think for a minute. There's so many.
Just the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely. And hooray, Wyandotte County and Johnson County both are knocking on the door. They'd like to have a Missouri Organic in their backyard too. And it makes sense to do something like that. But that really, I'd say it's on the horizon. I'm not sure if it's how close it is, but it would be a start. And these things, the beauty of it, because it's circular, is that it can't be done anywhere else. We can't really truck it and keep it going. We have to build each piece of that thing here and keep it here, and the jobs here and the benefits, as Guillermo says, where we got to educate people about the idea. I wrote a speech. It was the alchemy of composting, how 2 + 2 = 9 if you let it. And this is the synergy we're talking about, because nature works this way. And oh yeah, there was a waste. Whoops, there's an animal there's a plant that's using that. There's no waste. All that proliferation of life we see is all we have to do is mimic that. It's ecology in the industrial sense.
Beautiful.
So Brian, someone was asking me as an architect, what am I looking for from this flow? And if I happen to be in the BNIM offices this morning, and if you could see, all the common tables are made of wood that for the first 50 years were doors at Commerce Towers. The rest of the tops are from Ripple's Glass's recycled glass. And so we're always looking for materials that have longer use or reuse, or when that isn't possible, to find materials that have been upcycled to interesting, durable, beautiful products. And the market is greater than what's available to us. We spend a lot of time searching for really good products and stories attached to them that include equity and opportunity and all these other things, and environmental performance, and avoiding the release of more carbon, or even better yet, something that would sequester carbon in the process of creating this product or in its life of performance. So the market, I think, is unlimited if we can produce the products that are attractive and are out of the waste stream. And Guillermo, I'd love to have your comment about that, because you're coming at this from a totally different perspective, but that's as a designer, that's what we hope to see.
No, I totally agree. Like we are, and me personally, I'm working with several cities in the US, for example, the city of Pittsburgh and the city of Austin, actually in creating these urban mines. So where we can find where the demolition activities are happening, so that we can kind of measure the materials outflows from those places. And we are also mapping where the construction activities are happening. So we connect supply with demand of those materials. So we avoid throwing away all the construction materials and all the demolition materials and reuse them in where they are needed. So those flows are amazing, and there are a lot of potential. There is a lot of potential there. the big problem is how we get to know those things. Do we create an app where we can record what kind of demolition activities are happening? It's through permits that are connected to the municipality. Someone was writing in the chat, policy is key. Policy is key indeed. Like through policy, we can kind of set up a set of prerequisites that you need to have when you go to ask for a permit, so that you need to have a material inventory of, for example, a building, and that will help for whenever that building is being demolished to know what kind of materials are there, so that you can easily connect those materials to someone that is looking for those kind of materials. So these kind of connections from supply to demand, from demolition to construction are super powerful, and they are happening slow by and little by little in different cities. I'm personally working with several of them. So there is a lot of potential. I don't know, for example, we did a citywide analysis and research for the city of Charlotte 4 years ago. And we have some data that from that study, there were 5 new business created in the field of reuse and recycle of materials. And in 4 years, we know that those businesses have created more than 500 jobs and generated more than $35 million in revenues. So when you guys were talking about what's the economic return from all these activities, there is economic return. And furthermore, all the markets are shifting. And in some years, if you want to loan money from someone or get a grant or whatever, you will have to prove that the business you are aiming to develop is circular. Otherwise, the money will not go to you. So that's we are in the process of changing. This is happening faster in some places than others, but we have to create this culture and encourage the front runners as Stan and other people that I'm amazed to listen to create this kind of mindset change and start creating the circular economy.
That's beautiful, Guillermo. And I almost want to double down on those 5 new businesses in Charlotte. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I could tell you, like, the biggest one is the one that is just what I was describing. That is a business that is mapping demolition sites and the new construction sites, and it's a company that is collecting concrete and transforming it again into concrete through a new technology called smart crushing machines. So all the concrete coming from this demolition activities is being reused 100% in new buildings. This is one of the biggest business coming out of that program. There is also a big one that, as when Bob was telling me about his tables, there's also a big one that is reusing doors. So there are a lot of different businesses, especially related to these construction demolition activities. But of course, there are many others regarding waste per se. And so, yeah.
Thank you so much. And we're just over time and feel like we're just getting started. I would love, this is a conversation that we're going to be having for quite some time. We're working with Metabolic, who is helping us with the beginning stages of a material flows analysis for the Blue River. So that Sankey diagram of all the data, where is it going? We're going to have a little bit more information. And then hopefully in further phases, we'll be able to come up with those battle plans around what are the leverage points and interventions in our circular economy and how do we grow? This is just a 101 conversation, and I hope that that you got some value out of it. And this will be the first of many. So I'll let any of the panelists or folks, any final thoughts or words But thank you so much for coming.
I wanted to point out Naj's comments about developers and the mindset that, like Guillermo was saying, that soon enough you won't be able to build from scratch. You'll have to buy something into the circular economy to even start a project. And that would be a great start, because I'm from a suburb owned and controlled by real estate and developers. And it's unsustainable. The people who need to work here can't live here. And we've got to find ways to incentivize a circular design, or well, it'll get tougher to do the other. So I think it's going to come back to us, but maybe not as soon as we'd like.
And not to belabor that point, Stan, but I think we need more developers in this community of the small and medium scale who are willing to do development projects from a more social minded aspect as opposed to just profits.
Agreed. And Naja, I would just say that our goal is to make these now considered waste, these resources so valuable, it would be insane for anyone to do illegal dumping. So we're trying to work you out of a job, make you available for something else.
Beautiful. Thank you all for your time, and let's build this. We're just at the beginning. I hope you realize the potential for green, meaningful jobs, the potential to really, grow a major economy in the Blue River Valley, and the potential to not only increase the footprint and penetration of existing businesses like Missouri Organic or Ripple Glass, but to create new ones. We can learn from all the other cities around the world that are already doing it and steal their ideas for our own use. So thank you, and please be in touch.
Good to talk with you guys.
Yeah, very good to talk to you. Very nice to meet you, Stan and
Yes.
Bob, and all of you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Guillermo. Thank you, Stan.
Bye.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Christina.
Thanks all.
Yeah.